Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into, well, a really challenging story. One of Jesus's most complex parables, the rich man and Lazarus.
Yeah, it's definitely one that makes you think. It hits hard on themes like wealth, poverty, judgment, eternity itself.
And like we usually do, we want to peel back the layers, look beyond the maybe obvious takeaways, find those surprising details.
Exactly. We're going to look really closely at the specifics, the things people often skim over,
Mhm.
to see the deeper warning here about indifference and about justice, ultimately.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Parables, they usually have, generic characters, a farmer, a servant, that sort of thing.
Right.
But this one, it's different. One character actually gets a name, Lazarus.
That alone tells you something's up. It sets it apart.
What jumps out at you about that name, Lazarus?
Well, the irony is just profound, isn't it? Lazarus. It means God is my helper.
Wow.
And you look at his life, destitute, sick, can't even move himself to the gate. It seems like the complete opposite of his situation.
Utterly helpless in the world's eyes.
Yet his name whispers this reliance on God. It's a stark contrast, especially when you put him next to the rich man.
Yeah, the rich man who seems to rely only on, well, what he can see and touch his wealth. Let's paint that picture first. The rich man's life.
Okay, the text makes a point of his clothes. Purple and fine linen. This isn't just like being well-dressed.
No.
This is broadcasting extreme status. Purple dye. It came from these specific sea snails. Incredibly difficult to produce. Astronomically expensive.
So, like, royalty only.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The absolute elite wearing purple was basically saying, I'm untouchable.
And the fine linen.
Suggest high-status garments, maybe even ceremonial stuff. But he wore this every day.
Okay, so he's living like a king daily. And the feasting.
Oh yeah, sumptuously. Not just on holidays, but daily. The text emphasizes that.
Every single day.
Which, some have suggested implies a life completely detached from normal rhythms, maybe even ignoring the Sabbath rest. Just constant self-gratification.
Okay, so that's the insight picture. Luxury, status, constant pleasure. Meanwhile, literally right outside his gate, there's Lazarus.
Visible, audible, probably he could likely hear the feasting. Unavoidable.
And his condition.
A beggar covered in sores. Painful ones. And so weak, he couldn't get there himself. Neighbors had to carry him, place him at the rich man's gate each day.
Just left there, and what did he want?
Just the scraps, the crumbs falling from that rich table. That's all he hoped for.
His status was incredibly low.
Lower than low. Less than the dogs, really.
The dogs. And that detail always gets me. In that culture, dogs weren't exactly beloved pets, were they?
No. Generally seen as unclean scavengers.
Oh.
Yet the only creatures shown interacting with Lazarus, offering any kind of, interaction, are these dogs licking his sores.
Which sounds awful to us.
It does. But interestingly, there's some historical context there. Some ancient thought suggested dog saliva might have had some rudimentary healing properties.
Right.
Yeah. Now, we wouldn't recommend it today. But the point of the story seems to be that his only physical contact, however gross or minimal, came from these despised animals, reinforcing his complete rejection by the humans around him.
Especially the human living just feet away in luxury. Lazarus's need was right there, constant, visible, immediate.
And completely ignored, willfully ignored.
Which leads us directly from that gate on earth to, well, the immediate aftermath. Death comes for both.
Yep. The great reversal kicks in instantly. The rich man dies, gets a fancy burial, fitting his status.
And Lazarus?
Lazarus dies too. No
Yeah.
mention of a burial. But he's immediately carried by angels to Abraham's bosom.
Abraham's bosom. Can you unpack that phrase a bit? It sounds comforting, but what does it really signify?
It's a really powerful image of honor and intimacy. Think of a banquet, the guest of honor reclining right next to the host, head near their chest.
Okay, so ultimate closeness, acceptance, comfort.
Exactly, the highest place of honor.
And the rich man.
He's in Hades, the place of the dead, and he's in torment, flames, suffering.
And it's from there he calls out. Not to God, but to Abraham.
Right. And notice his first request. He asked Abraham to send Lazarus, order him, really to dip his finger in water and cool his tongue.
Wow, okay, hold on. Even in agony, his first instinct is still to command Lazarus, the guy he ignored.
That's the staggering part, isn't it? It
Yeah.
reveals so much. Even across the divide of death and judgment, he still sees Lazarus as someone beneath him, someone he can order around.
He still has that earthly hierarchy stuck in his head.
Absolutely. He recognized Lazarus in life. He knew who he was. This
Mhm.
wasn't ignorance. It was willful blindness, deliberate indifference. And that attitude clearly hasn't changed, even in torment.
So Abraham's response is pretty direct then.
Very direct. He lays it out plainly. You had your good things in life, Lazarus had bad things. Now he's comforted, and you're in anguish.
It's a statement of fact. The situation is reversed, period.
Exactly. So the first big takeaway here seems to be our choices, our actions or inactions in this life have direct, unchangeable consequences for eternity. This isn't a negotiation. It's the verdict.
And then Abraham adds another layer, this chasm.
The Great Gulf, he says it's fixed, permanent. No one can cross from one side to the other.
That raises a crucial point for us listening now, doesn't it? What does that fixed chasm mean, practically?
It hammers home the finality of death. It's the deadline, the chance to respond, to change, to show compassion. That window closes when life ends.
No do-overs. No crossing that gap later.
The opportunity is now, while we're living.
Okay. So the rich man seems to accept his own fate is sealed at this point.
It appears so, because his request shifts.
Right. He asks Abraham to send Lazarus back to Earth.
Yeah, back from the dead, specifically to warn his 5 brothers so they don't end up in the same place.
Now that sounds almost considerate, a flicker of concern for his family, maybe.
You could see it that way, perhaps. Sort of desperate last-minute thought.
So why does Abraham shoot it down so quickly, so firmly?
Abraham's answer is key. He says, they have noses in the prophets. Let them hear them.
Moses and the prophets, meaning the scriptures, the Old Testament, what they had then.
Exactly. God's revealed word. The guidance already given on how to live righteously, how to love God and neighbor.
And if they ignore that...
Then Abraham says they won't be convinced even if someone rises from the dead.
Wow. That's quite a statement. It speaks right to that human desire for signs and wonders, doesn't it?
It really does. If the clear teaching already available isn't enough to soften someone's heart, then even the most spectacular miracle won't do it either.
So the third big principle we're seeing here is God has already given us what we need to know.
Essentially, yes. Sufficient guidance is available. The core problem isn't a lack of information or, a lack of evidence. It's the condition of the heart, a hardened heart that refuses to listen.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. People listening might be wondering, okay, what exactly did the rich man do that was so terrible? It wasn't just being rich, right? Abraham himself was wealthy.
Exactly right. Wealth itself isn't condemned here. We need to look deeper at his failure, and it seems to boil down to 2 main errors.
Okay, what's the first one?
A fundamental failure of stewardship, sort of misplaced ownership.
Meaning he thought everything he had was truly his.
Precisely. He acted as if his wealth, his time, his comfort, his resources, it was all his property, to do with entirely as he pleased. He forgot the ultimate owner.
Forgetting God's sovereignty over everything.
Yeah, like Psalm 24.1 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. He treated his wealth almost like an idol, something to be served and enjoyed exclusively, rather than seeing himself as a manager, a steward of God's resources.
So worshiping mammon instead of God, essentially.
That's a good way to put it. That focus on possessing and consuming creates a huge spiritual blind spot.
Okay, that's error 1. What's the second?
The second one feels even more pointed, maybe more relevant for us today. It's the sin of willful blindness, the sin of omission.
Omission, meaning what he didn't do.
Exactly. It's been said that wealth can act like a kind of spiritual thermometer. It reveals where your heart's priorities really lie. The rich man's catastrophic failure wasn't necessarily a terrible action like murder or theft. It was his consistent, deliberate inaction.
Day after day.
Day after day. He saw Lazarus. He knew the need was there right at his gate.
Yeah.
And he chose, repeatedly, to do nothing, to ignore him.
He didn't even need to give him his fancy robe, just the crumbs.
Even just the crumbs. That level of indifference, that callousness in the face of visible suffering, was the critical failure.
That's a really sobering thought. The consequences for not doing good were just as severe as if he'd done something actively evil.
Right. And this is where it really challenges us, doesn't it, for you listening? That inaction is presented as profound disobedience.
Like the parable of the talents, the servant who buried his talent was condemned not for losing it, but for doing nothing with it.
Exactly the same principle. So we have to ask ourselves, are we blind to the Lazarus figures near us?
And Lazarus might not be someone literally starving at our gate today.
No, it applies much more broadly. We see needs everywhere, don't we? It could be ignoring the loneliness of an elderly neighbor. It could be refusing to use our time or skills to help a community group that's struggling.
Or maybe even just not offering a word of comfort or support to a colleague who's obviously overwhelmed.
Right. It's about that willful choice to remain indifferent when we do have a resource, whether that's money, time, attention, compassion that could make a difference, that turning away is the sin of omission.
He could hear the party inside, Lazarus could hear it from outside. Both knew the disparity existed.
And a rich man actively chose to maintain that gap in life. That indifference was his defining characteristic.
So wrapping up the main lesson here, this parable is a serious wake-up call. Our actions and our inactions, especially towards those in need right in front of us, they have eternal weight.
Indifference isn't neutral. It's a failure of stewardship, a failure of love.
But there's also hope in this story, isn't there, in Lazarus himself?
Absolutely. He was the lowest of the low on earth. Powerless, despised, physically weak.
Yet he finds immediate acceptance, ultimate comfort.
Which shows us that God's judgment isn't based on our earthly status, our wealth, our abilities, or our physical condition. It's based on something else.
Reliance on him. Trust.
That seems to be the key, that underlying trust, maybe unnamed but present, that God is my helper even when everything looked hopeless. That was his true wealth.
Okay. So a final thought to leave with everyone listening. One source suggested we all have a bit of that rich man's heart inside us.
That tendency to cling to what we have, to let our possessions or comforts block our connection with God and with others in need.
So the question for you to reflect on is this. What resource, maybe it's your time, your money, your skills, your attention, what are you currently treating as exclusively yours?
Yeah, what property might be blinding you to the needs right outside your own gate? Let's hope we can all seek, eyes that truly see those needs and hands that are willing to act while we still have the chance.